Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and this is your New Eden news for November 21st, YC 126, Zarzakh report, Shikari consequences, and the Deathless. Disclaimer. The scope cannot verify the veracity of this individual's account of events, and their opinions do not represent the opinions of the scope. We trust that our readers have the capacity to decide for themselves what is an appropriate degree of skepticism to apply to the following narrative. My decisions often begin life as they exit my mouth, long before they have made my way to my brain. By that time, the opportunity to avoid any particular outcome has long since passed, freeing me of any need for the pretense of foresight. Yet, as I was marched through dark corridors, flanked on either side by the augmented face of the Deathless agents, a thought did occur to me without first being voiced. The thought that perhaps my actions do have consequences. Broadly speaking, the missives I forward to you have engendered two equally powerful yet opposite reactions in Zarzakh's residence. For the first and most surprising of these is delight. Strangers calling me the report lady desperately thrust free beverages into my hand. While I may not cherish the name, the drinks themselves are appreciated. I find this reaction the most common with the newly emboldened clones that have recently began pouring into the fulcrum. Their former lives haunting Upwell skyhooks were drab enough that reading the scopes qualified as entertainment. Since they began arriving, they have been introduced to a wide array of drinking songs that demonstrate great poetic skill, entirely focused on identifying dirty words that rhyme with consortium. The second and more predictable reaction is violence. Luckily, I'm an expert at avoidance, and have managed to pull off enough unannounced exits to retain almost all of my teeth. I was debating the risk of my continued residency on this knife's edge when I came face to chrome with the aforementioned Circle agents. Few are invited to delve beneath the neon crust of the Fulcrum's more populous areas, and I have always been glad to not be one of them. The agents had no interest in my protests. Hiking through the unit halls of this fallen kingdom has a way of making a person feel about as significant as a mote of dust. Not to mention the unmistakable paranoia that radiates from every dark corner. It is like being at once both inside the belly of a whale and between the eyes of a tiger. Eventually, we emerged onto a grand platform that spanned a far greater chasm. At the far end, atop a simple throne, sat the King of Nowhere himself, the Deathless. I, like most who live here, have never seen the man in person before. It is not an experience I would recommend. In place of a crown, he wears a wreath of tentacles that rise up from his back into the metallic guts of the fulcrum itself. His face is like chipped ice, save for those eyes that burn right through you. As he stared at me, I began to fear I had only been brought there so he could watch while his followers tossed me into the vanishing abyss below. Instead, he asked that I come closer. As I reluctantly approached, he spoke. He told me of the Circle did not come here to build a kingdom of secrets, that he was glad that my reports had been published, and that the people of New Eden needed to be prepared for the truth. In my experience, truth is a mirror, with as many faces as there are people looking. I asked him why he didn't just tell people the truth himself. Declaration is the folly of empires, he replied, and silence the hubris of tyrants. Only discovery sparks understanding. As he spoke, I felt it resonate through my very bones. Is that why you brought all these infomorphs here? I asked, my mouth deciding on the question before my brain had a chance to intervene. It's one reason, he responded. And as he spoke, the chasm below creaked out a discordant note. The Deathless twitched, and I was reminded for a moment that I was speaking to a human being, or at least something close enough to one, to be still capable of flinching. We have no purpose, if our purpose is not guidance, he said. Perhaps to me, but perhaps not. He told me that the Fulcrum was, quote, a home for New Eden's lost, broken, and abandoned. I wondered if he counted himself among that number. He continued, the path we walk must be built by many hands and many minds. Those who have seen the failures of what has been invited to build what will be. Even if this means the consortiums comes gunning for you, I asked. Rumor is that they're lobbying Concord to explode anyone caught with one of their infomorphs. Material desires have locked them into a single dimension of thought, trapped on an axis of rising profit. They slam the doors shut, but we are already on the other side. Pretty cryptic for one so interested in speaking the truth. I have witnessed much Now meaning must be condensed. 3 worlds will not balance on the tip of a meat tongue. A strange message to leave the people of New Eden. Only a statement. My message is this. You are not safe. Though the air lies still, pressure builds unseen. The storm will break. When it does, thunderous silence will echo through the cluster. Be skeptical, be prudent, but be ready. I returned to the bright surface waters of our Jovian Colossus only to be washed up on the shores of a bottle. The more time that passed and the emptier that bottle became, the less certain I was that I had not dreamt the entire encounter. Truth is a fickle lover, and subjectivity a willing accomplice. This will be my last submission from Zarzakh. Not because I'm being chased out, because I'm not, but because if a storm really is coming, I need to speak with the people it hits, not stay cooped up in here. Maybe I'll see you there. News in brief. Rash of equipment thefts reported across Equinox workforce colonies. Coordinated operations suspected. Equinox colony administrators appeal for supplementary security denied by Upwell as deemed untenable. Upwell lobbies Concord to declare physical infomorph transportation as a violation of embodiment statutes in the Uli Accord. Core Complexion Incorporated CEO Inoxer Strident announced launch of Sebaster promising youth outreach program. Caldari Mountain faction proposes tougher internal security sweeps. Electoral commissions reluctant to set dates, says reason are classified. Rumors of FIO involvement in postponement. SOCT commissions new space-time anomaly tracking research project. And that is it for our New Eden news for November 21st, YC126. Now for some analysis. So, this is the third, I think, report that we've gotten from this lady in the Fulcrum. This one is a lot less flowery in the way, she's not looking for a Pulitzer Prize Award in her writing in this one, but it is still, it goes into a lot of information. One of the things that did stand out to me just a little bit is this statement about the storm will break, and when it does, thunderous silence will echo. That reminded me of, if you go into the Erebus description, there is a prophecy known as the Prophecy of MacApper, right? And the Prophecy of MacApper, one of the first prophecies was the roaring stone that silences the world, which was this meteorite that caused a bunch of people on a planet to lose their hearing. However, the final piece of the prophecy is recreated on the description of the Erebus, where it says, "From the formless void's gaping maw there springs an entity, not an entity such as you can conceive of, nor I, an entity more primordial than the elements themselves, yet constantly coming into existence, even as it is destroyed. It is the child of chaos, the pathway to the next. The darkness shall swallow the land, and in its wake there will follow a storm, as the appetite of nothing expands over the world. From the formless void's gaping maw there springs an entity." So I've long since believed, and there has been pretty close connections between the rise of the Drifters and the Triglavians with the final phases of the Prophecy of MacApper. Actually, this isn't the final one. The final one was the Dark Light of the Mother, I think. But either way, I wonder whether or not that's a reference to this, that idea of like the thunder of silence and the idea of the coming of the storm did remind me of the Prophecy of MacApper. In addition to that, so in the news in brief, we see, so the rash of equipment thefts, very likely to be related to what's coming with the Vanguard Groundbreak event. The supplementary security denied by Upwell. So this is like mercenary dens, probably. Upwell lobbies Concord to declare physical infomorph transportation as a violation of embodiment statutes in Uli Accord. It's a very interesting idea. They talk about it in the main body too, because she asks the Deathless about it. It actually introduces kind of an interesting concept. I don't think it would be one of those things where you just get concorded if you have it. That doesn't really make sense. The only thing that gets you concorded is if you're a criminal, like criminal flag. But there is a legality system. There's a contraband system that does exist, and it still exists, although a lot of the contraband got removed. Most of the drugs used to be contraband, but now it's not. But for instance, if we go to protein delicacies, we can see that protein delicacies are illegal in the areas of Sisters of Eve, the Syndicate, the Gallente Federation, and Ore. So, for instance, if you're caught with protein delicacies in the Gallente Federation, you'll lose some standings. It'll confiscate the stuff if you're in 0.8 or above, and it's a fine of 120% of the estimated market value of the stuff that you get caught with. So, when the Deathless was first coming out, I was speculating about like a whole new concept of piracy and like re-envisioning or reinvigorating this smuggling idea. And it's also worth noting that the Tholos and the Cenotaph both have a roll bonus of immune to cargo scanners, as well as the Boo Book, which was the first ship that got introduced associated with the Deathless. The Boo Book, which is an advanced shuttle, but it too has... Oh, it doesn't say it here, but the Boo Book is immune to cargo scanners. That should probably be posted somewhere. This does say that it is more effective smuggler than small volume cargoes past custom checks and blockades. Has it been? I don't think so. Where's the ship tree? You think it should be? Probably, although the Boo Book was never really official. Like, they didn't officially say it, but yeah, it'd be an interesting idea to do that for sure. Although, here's my counterpoint, okay? Ready? If I look up the ship tree and I go to Blood Raiders, I see the first thing is the Kruer, and it goes up from there. But if oh God, now I don't remember the name of it. Hold on. I have the Sancha one? Yeah. So if I go to Sancha, you don't see the immolator, but it is here. Now, granted, almost nobody's going to use this. Almost nobody even has this, but they do exist. So I think that we could classify the Boo Book in the same category as those Corvettes, probably. Scan immunity does not stop customs. That is a good point, Lorelite, although maybe they'll be fixing that. They need to completely refactor the legality system. Maybe they can just put in a thing that makes it so that it ignores it if it has the doodad that makes it so they can't scan it. Because you're right, the contraband system was not designed with the idea of unscannable ships in mind, but it does feel like they're going in that direction, doesn't it? It is a limited edition ship, that's true. But there are other limited edition ships that are on here, like all of the Concord ships and all of the SOCT ships. Well, I mean, like, it already has a flag, right? I'm sure it does. Okay, the SOCT shuttle is up, though. Yeah, that's fair, but they do keep giving that one away. So here, let's see. I bet you we can find the flag. Cargo scan resistance of 1. There it is. So you would just have to check for that and throw away the result if you see it. Either way, moving on. Core Complexion announces a launch of Sebaster Promising Youth Outreach Program. Unsure of where this is going. There's always stuff going on in the Minmatar Republic, and it's hard to necessarily pin down what it is that they're trying to do. But yeah. Caldari Mountain Faction proposes tougher internal security sweeps. So the Mountain Faction is, if we go to my lore page and go to organizations, the Mountain Faction is the JLCL partnership, which is the Kalakiota and Sukavesta. So KK and Suvi, which are the two largest mega corporations in New Eden. And I think that they mostly were building, they got a contract to build in Quaif. Everfresh, a partnership between mega corporations. Oh yeah, there's like a partnership between them and Quaif. That's suspicious. But yeah, don't know if that'll pay off or anything. Gallente Electoral Commission reluctant to set date. This is an interesting one. Okay, so next year is an election year for the Gallente Federation. The last time we had an election, Celis Ard was elected. However, this is where we get into high tinfoil, okay? I have a high tinfoil theory when this statement sets off my spidey senses for tinfoil. Let's go into this. Ironically enough, I'm going to get my opportunity to show this off. Now, Celis Ard has been a very controversial president. She has some pretty big enemies, especially the Intaki representative Belleron. But she also has some pretty strong allies. She has done a lot to increase the industry power of the Gallente Federation, especially through automation, which did end up having some problems with like putting people out of jobs, but made the Federation a lot stronger overall. She also controversially basically broke the ULI or the Concord agreements and the Emergency Militia War Powers Act to seize control over Intaki, which has continued to be a controversy ever since. So she's a pretty embattled president at this point. However, I would like to introduce you, if you don't know, to Mentis Black. Mentis Black is the head of the FIO, the Black Ops department of the Gallente Federation. He created the Black Eagles. And Mentis Black is one of those people who have been in the picture since like at least 2008. Now, what's interesting is that last election was disrupted by a series of attacks during right before the election. The previous election had a series of attacks where all but two of the candidates were there was an attempted assassination on all of the candidates except for two. One of them was the player candidate, Julius Soder, who's a longstanding pro-Gallente character. And the other person was Mentis Black, who ran for presidency, but didn't really work too hard about it, I would say. He didn't get a ton of votes. But I always found it kind of interesting that he was one of the two people that didn't have an attempt on his life during that event. The other thing that's really interesting about that assassination attempt was that they successfully assassinated Celis Ard. She was one of the people that got hit and killed by a bomb, I think it was. And so she had to get restored from a backup clone. So Celis Ard dies, and it has to be brought back via clone with lost memory, and then wins the presidency. So there's always been this kind of conspiracy theory about like, well, did she get replaced? Is this a body double? Are we sure that this is Celis Ard? Did they do something to her to make her more malleable? Mentis Black was also surprising to go for presidency because he's not really a in the front kind of guy. He's a background manipulator, right? Okay. So with all that said, I find it super interesting that it is the FIO is involved in the postponement, because if you want to assume that Mentis Black was involved in the installing of Celis Ard as the president and the controlling of her, if you want to assume that, which I'm not necessarily saying is true, but that matches this in the fact that like, well, maybe they're trying to delay the election because they have some plans for what they want to do before they lose power, right? Hard to say exactly, but the election is coming up, so that's going to be something to watch very closely, especially after what happened last time. And the last one is the SOCT Commission's new Spacetime Anomaly Tracking Research Project. That is actually based off of the previous New Eden news, where when the Warden woke up, they talk about how there were a bunch of anomalies in space-time that then stabilized. And so there's been some questions about whether or not this is drifters operating. Is this an effect of the Warden resonating with the different atom that's out there in the world? Something happened that caused a bunch of space-time anomalies right as the Warden was waking up, and then it stabilized. So I assume that the SOCT, which, here we go, simultaneously with the Warden's reveal, the Society of Conscious Thought has reported observing minor shifts or ripples in space-time across New Eden. These ripples quickly stabilized, but Edemisphere, CEO of the SOCT, has expressed concern. The original purpose of this structure remains a mystery, but its powerful potential is evident. We cannot trust such an incredible artifact at the whims of the irrelevant criminals such as the Deathless Circle. And also, we do know now, with everything we've learned about the Deathless, that the SOCT and the Deathless are very tightly connected. The Deathless used to be a member of the SOCT, so there's a pretty decent possibility that the SOCT has known about what's going on for quite some time and has been working against the Deathless and manipulating us against the Deathless for quite some time. But with all that in mind, they are, doing their monitoring thing now. And I believe that that's it, right? Yeah, that's the last one. All right. Well, that's it for the New Eden news and analysis. I have been Astroth, the voice of New Eden. Please make sure to like the video if you do like it. Thank you guys for checking it out. Like the video and comment down below, where do you think the presidential election is going to go? Do you think that Celis Ard is going to win it? Do you think somebody else is going to come in? Do you think that Black has something in mind? Let me know down below. But with all that said, I've been Ashrathi, the voice of New Eden. Until next time, I'll see you in space.